Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, occult detectives and Scottish cannibals. It's my weekly wrap-up. So a couple of bits of housekeeping first. So I'm doing two things this weekend, which I haven't done for ages. Really looking forward to both of them. So the first one is that I'm going live on someone else's channel. So Mike from Mike's Book Reviews reached out and asked me if I'd like to go and talk about nothing with him in his regular series where he chats with other booktubers. So that is happening today. We'll be going live on Mike's channel at 7 p.m. UK time, which I think, if I'm getting my time zones right, is about 11 a.m. Pacific time or 2 p.m. Eastern time if you're in the States. So I'll leave a link to Mike's channel in the description. Click on that, go to the live tab and you'll find that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to having a chat with Mike. And then tomorrow morning I'm going to be doing reading sprints for the first time in ages. So this is part of the TBR Harvest event created by Leandra, the TBR Zero. I will leave a link in the description to this video to the preview card for that, so you can click to be notified, but that will be happening at 8 a.m. UK time tomorrow morning should you want to take part. So recognise that's in the middle of the night for anyone in the States, but if you can't sleep and you fancy doing some reading, then do feel free to join. I'm looking forward to doing some sprints again. It's been a while. Right, let's get on with the book stuff then. So I'll talk about what I've read this week, and then talk about what's been on the channel and what's coming up on the channel in the week ahead. And it's not been an amazing week reading wise. I've enjoyed everything I've read to varying degrees, but there hasn't been a book this week that's absolutely blown me away, I have to say. But I've got 4 things I've finished, so let me talk to you about those. So the first one of those is a pretty new book. It came out I think in September or early October. It's Jekyll and Hyde, Consulting Detectives by Tim Major. So this book has a really fantastic concept. I love the idea of it. I didn't enjoy the execution quite as much. It's a little bit dry. It didn't lean into the kind of humorous possibilities of the concept as much as I'd hoped it would. So the idea is, as you can tell from the title, that Jekyll and Hyde are effectively a pair of detectives who investigate various things, and in this they're investigating a series of mysterious deaths. There's an interesting female character who is like an ex-fiancée of Jekyll's who gets involved as well. So it was like a reasonable kind of Victorian detective story with that bit of a twist in terms of the fact that sometimes you get Hyde detecting and sometimes you get Jekyll detecting, but it wasn't quite as enjoyable as I'd hoped it would be. Next up then, and so this I read for Occult Detective October, and I can't decide if it really fits for Occult Detective October or not. So it's definitely a detective novel with horror themes, but I don't think it's a true occult detective novel in that they're not really investigating something occult and mysterious or supernatural, although there's definitely, as you can tell, a supernatural element to the story. The same is true for the second book I read this week, which was Gravesite by Charlaine Harris. So this is the first in the series of books about a woman who's a psychic, and she can, if she's within the proximity of a dead body, she can tell how that person died, and she can identify who they were and things about their life. So she gets kind of called in to investigate mysterious deaths and things like this. In this one, she's investigating the disappearance of a young woman in like the Ozarks region in the US. She has her stepbrother who kind of tags along and helps out on cases. And as I say, this is the first in the series. I think there's at least 4, and I've got a couple more of them. I enjoyed it. It's not fantastic, but I definitely had a good time with it. It's got a kind of strong romance element running through it as well, but the actual mystery was well handled, the suspense was well handled, and the fact that she's got these psychic powers I thought was quite interestingly integrated into the story. But again, I'm not sure it's really an occult detective book because it's the detective who has the supernatural kind of capability rather than that being central to the mystery, if that makes sense. But still, I had a good time with it. After that, I read something, or finished something, which is definitely occult detective, and that was The Adventures of Jules de Grandin by Seabury Quinn. So I'd started this the previous week for Vintage Week. It was Modern Week this week for Occult Detective October. So this was really entertaining. but definitely of its time. So this is a collection of short stories. This edition that I read was, I think, published in like the 60s or 70s, but the stories were originally in like the 20s and 30s. And you can definitely tell they're from the 20s and 30s. Like extreme racial stereotypes in a lot of them. So go into the stories with that in mind if that's something that might turn you off. But the stories themselves were an enjoyable kind of mixture of different things. So there was a vampire story, there was a werewolf story, there was a story about like weird suicides and things like that. So some interesting mysteries. Jules de Grandin, who's the central character, is a French detective. So very much feels like he was based on Hercule Poirot, but investigating supernatural stuff. He has a sidekick, Trowbridge, who's also the narrator of the story, so like a Watson type character. But yeah, they were cheesy, exploitative, fun short stories. So I did quite enjoy that collection. And then the other book I finished this week was something I wasn't intending to read, and then saw it featured on a channel called Pulp Fiction, which is rapidly becoming one of my favourite channels for recommendations. I'll leave a link in the description to the video to the channel. It's a new YouTube channel, but he's had some great recommendations so far, and this was one of them. So this is The Flesh Eaters by L.A. Morse, which is a horror novel that came out in, I think, 1980. Based on the legend of Sawney Bean, who was a Scottish cannibal who lived in either the 15th or 16th century. As I say, it's a little bit sketchy about whether or not he was an actual person or whether he's purely legendary, which is why I think there's a bit of a doubt about which century he lived in. But he was the head of a clan, which is entirely made up of basically his girlfriend and their offspring and their offspring's offspring, who lived together in a cave and murdered around 1,000 like local travellers and ate them. So a very grim short horror novel, but quite an interesting read. I think I'm going to do a review of it, which will probably go up this week on Thursday. In terms of currently reading then, so I'm still listening to the audiobook of Shogun by James Clavell. So I think I'm about 7 or 8 hours in, and I've still got like 45 hours to go or something like that. And it feels like you know, it's 7 hours is like a whole book basically, isn't it? So it's definitely a long book, but I am enjoying it, and I think I've got further than I've ever got with Shogun before. So I've got past that kind of tipping point, if you like, and I'm still having a good time with it. So, you know, very, very detailed, clearly, has lots of kind of digressions and lots of bits where he talks about like the background of a character, for, you know, at length, which I think explains why the novel is quite so huge. But I am continuing to have a good time with it. And then also reading a book which I'm not enjoying as much, which is Small G, A Summer Idyll by Patricia Highsmith. So Patricia Highsmith's last novel, published, I think, after her death. Very different from her other books, less of a kind of crime thriller type book. So this is about a small group of characters, one of whom is HIV positive. And it's kind of interesting, but equally it's just about this group of people like doing stuff and talking to each other basically. So I'm really not loving it. If I'm completely honest, if it wasn't for the fact that I've read all of Patricia Highsmith's novels in order, and this is the last one, I'd probably DNF it. But because it's the last book, and I've gone on this journey of reading all of her books, it seems like I should, you know, it feels to me personally like I should see it out. And sometimes with Highsmith's books, I found I haven't been loving them in the middle, but by the end they've completely turned around, and I've thought they were fantastic. So we'll see if that happens with this one. So that's what I've read and what I'm currently reading. In terms of what's up next, definitely I think these two are on the pad for next week. So Associate Professor Akira Takazuka's Conjecture Folklore Studies, which is a Japanese light novel, and then also Occult Detective Magazine Mythos Special 2. So both of these I'll be reading for Occult Detective October. Channel stuff then. So the last week you've had my review of Rest Stop by Nat Cassidy, which comes out this week. I got my dates muddled up. I thought it came out last week. It actually comes out this week on the 15th, I think. A really fantastic horror novella, which I enjoyed enormously. You've also got my review of Elemental Forces, edited by Mark Morris, a new collection of 20 horror short stories, which again was really, really good. That did come out last week on the 8th. You've also had an unboxing video where I unboxed some books and strange American food, some of which I've eaten now. So one of the things that was in the box was something I couldn't identify, like a seed. And a load of people have pointed out in the comments that it's sunflower seeds. So sunflower seeds here in the UK tend to be sold shelled, so like without the shell on. Whereas these bags, I haven't got one to hand, or have I? Actually, I have. So yeah, these bags, you can see they have the shells on. But I've really enjoyed eating these this week. So there's kind of a trick to them. So they are flavoured. So you put them in your mouth with the shell on, suck the flavour off, and then kind of lightly bite to break the shell. Take them out of your mouth, peel them, and then just eat the seed inside. Which is something that's completely new to me, but it's something I've found I quite enjoy doing when I'm working. It's just kind of a habit thing it's become. Anyway, that's enough about sunflower seeds. So yes, you had the unboxing video, and then you also had my September wrap-up. In the week ahead then, I haven't quite decided exactly what videos I'm going to make. I've got 6 or 7 that I could make. I think the 4 that I'm going to do are a review of The Flesh Eaters, which I just talked about, my 10 favourite authors at the moment, a video about an article that I just read in The Guardian, which has got like 6 tips for reading more, so my reaction to those tips, and then a video about what I think Amazon should do if they release a colour Kindle. So the way I think they should design that device. So recognising that I don't use Kindles anymore, there's a load of buzz around, are Amazon going to release a colour Kindle? And I've got some thoughts about how I think they could make that successful. Anyway, so that's the channel stuff. That's the books I've been reading. Do let me know in the comments what you've been reading this week. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.